there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered about the tragic plane crash that just occurred a couple of days ago in Washington, D.C. But I'm not confident that we're going to get answers to a lot of these questions, because now we already have all of these other news stories dangling in front of our face, distracting us. Now we're already trying to figure out, hey, what happened to the plane in Philadelphia? Even though we never figured out what happened with the plane crash in Washington, D.C. Now, it's obvious that there's some sort of effort to kind of remain somewhat secretive about this plane crash. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, they refused to release the name of the third person inside of the Black Hawk helicopter. They downright refused to release the name of the co-pilot. Now, of course, this sent the internet abuzz. It caused more backlash than if they just released the name. I understand that maybe they were trying to protect, her or this woman, that the co-pilot, from criticism, or they were trying to protect her family because they knew, like, people would be mean about it online and stuff. But that's not how life works, man. People say mean things. People are going to say things. A lot of people lost their lives. All of them were identified except for one person. So that right there kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth, because it made me feel like they weren't being fully transparent from the get-go. Well, about an hour ago, they finally released the name. They identified the co-pilot. But you see, they've been talking about how this Black Hawk was on like a little training mission. But the reality is, it was so much more than that. One of the reasons why they're being so secretive about this crash are, at least at surface level from what I see, is that this Black Hawk helicopter was doing training for like special secret missions, like secret evacuation plans for the president and other prominent figures within our military and the U.S. government. They weren't on just any routine training flight. They were preparing for something. They were preparing for something bad to happen. A crazy situation, like a 9/11 type of situation, where they would have to swoop into Washington, D.C., and basically get the president and get other prominent figures out of there as quickly as possible, as secretive as possible as well. I want to go ahead and dive into some of this information here. Top U.S. officials said a military helicopter was on a regular training mission when it collided with a civilian airliner over the Potomac River on Wednesday night. The scenario its pilots were preparing for was anything but routine. The UH-60 Black Hawk Helicopters Unit, the 12th Aviation Battalion, has a unique mission set: quickly evacuating top U.S. officials to secure locations, such as one in Pennsylvania, in the event of a catastrophe or an attack on the U.S. government. I want to pause right there. So knowing that's what these people were planning for, it makes you wonder, like, damn, the president could have been on this Black Hawk when this happened. It's not far-fetched to believe that we could have had some very, prominent figures in the U.S. government, maybe even other world leaders, could have been aboard this Black Hawk. That's crazy to think about. Like, these are the people that we're depending on to, like, rescue our president if America is under attack. And out of all the other helicopters and planes flying around, the one that is meant to rescue our president is the one that goes down. Let's go further. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said in an interview Friday that the helicopter was performing a continuity of government drill, which helped the pilots rehearse in ways that would reflect a real-world scenario. He declined to offer much more detail, saying he didn't want to get into anything that's classified. The government doesn't disclose details of its evacuation plans for top officials, but they likely involve Raven Rock Mountain, a facility in Pennsylvania that has been used since the 1950s as an alternate command center in the event of a nuclear war. Plans for continuity of government are among the Pentagon's most tightly held secrets, said Mark Kansian, a defense analyst who follows Pentagon operations with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. They cover who would be evacuated, how, and where they would go. Even the mission's chief beneficiary, Donald Trump, appeared caught unaware by its purpose. At a press conference on Wednesday, he asked to clarify comments by Hegseth on the continuity of government plans. "I don't know what that refers to," he said. The importance of the 12th mission helps explain why the Pentagon has continued the practice flights in the crowded airspace around Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, even as flights into and out of the airport have grown in number in recent years. Now, I want to pause right there again. Isn't it crazy how these plans to evacuate the president are so secretive that the president is not even aware of these plans? Like, if you think that someone would, have a little bit of inside information on these plans, it would be the president, but no. These top secret plans to evacuate the president in case of an attack, they're so top secret that the president doesn't even know. But let's go forward. The Government Accountability Office said in 2021 that there had been some 88,000 helicopter flights in the area between 2017 and 2019, 37% of which were military flights. The report was commissioned by local lawmakers because of noise complaints stemming from all of the frequent flights. The crash, which killed 64 people on the American Airlines jet and the 3 crew members aboard the helicopter, will draw scrutiny to all that traffic, and on Friday, the FAA suspended flights that may temporarily put an end to one of the unit's missions: VIP flights for senior government leaders. Hegseth told a White House briefing on Thursday that the crew was on a routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The helicopter was based at Davidson Army Airfield in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Some of their mission is to support the Department of Defense if something really bad happens in this area, and we need to move our senior leaders. Jonathan Kazoil, Chief of Staff for the Army's Aviation Directorate, told reporters on Thursday, "They do need to be able to understand the environment, the air traffic, the routes, to ensure the safe travel of our senior leaders throughout our government." In 2019, Bloomberg News disclosed, based on Army budget documents, that the service was asking Congress for approval to shift $1.5 million for aircraft maintenance, air crews, and travel in support of an emerging classified flight mission to include modifying a specialized location to review classified material. The money initially supported flying of 10 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, largely at night. Later that year, the Army acknowledged that the facilities are currently undergoing renovation for what's now an enduring mission. So, I have a few takeaways from this, obviously. My number one takeaway is just how frightening this is, because the helicopters and the crews that are in charge of transferring around the most prominent, I don't want to say important, but I guess you kind of have to. I don't think this person's more important than that person, but I guess you could say there would be a bigger fallout if a president, died in a helicopter crash as opposed to like someone like me or you, right? So my main takeaway is that I would assume that the aircraft used to transport our military leaders and our top officials here in America, I would assume that these are top-of-the-line aircraft that get more routine maintenance and checks than any other aircraft probably on planet Earth. I would assume that the crews aboard these aircraft are the most skilled, crews possible. So it's kind of scary to think that, hey, if something like this is happening with the aircraft and the crews aboard the aircraft that are responsible for transporting people like the president, imagine, the aircraft that people like me and you are getting on every day. If the helicopter that is meant to rescue the president in the event of nuclear war and the people flying that helicopter, you get what I'm saying here? Like it lets you know, hey, wait, if that could happen with this helicopter and with these pilots, it damn sure could happen in my helicopter or on the plane that I'm getting on. You guys catch what I'm saying here? Like, that's one of the main things that I'm thinking about when I look at this is like, hey, this is top of the line stuff. This is supposed to be the best of the best. And if this is what the best of the best is doing, then what the hell is my pilot doing? What the hell kind of condition is my aircraft in? You know what I mean? And, when I look at the crash, I don't care what anyone says. It just feels and looks very odd to me. And it just makes me wonder, a few things. And I know people are talking about online how the Black Hawks can kind of be like controlled remotely and stuff these days. One thing I'm worried about is, the more we advance technology, the easier it is to hack into technology. That's the crazy part. Like back in the day when you're in an old muscle car, someone cannot hack into that car. You're fine. But in the modern day, you're driving around one of these electric vehicles, someone can literally hack and shut down your vehicle. They could even turn on self-driving mode and have it drive itself. So part of me wonders, and I'm not saying that this happened here, but at some point in the future, we're going to be dealing with situations where our enemies could hack into our airplanes' computer systems and kind of fly them wherever they want to. You know what I mean? Those are possibilities that we have to look at in the future. To be clear, I don't think, and I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just saying that we know that the capabilities are out there, and how long before we start seeing stuff like that if we haven't seen stuff like that already. But the other takeaway is, okay, you guys are planning for some type of escape mission for the president. How routine is this? That's the other question you need to ask. Are y'all out here flying every night doing training flights in case you gotta, evacuate the president? Or is there a reason why you're doing this training right now? Or are there some type of threats? Is there something big on the horizon that we should know about? You know what I mean? Those are things that I question as well. I want to know, how well was the equipment working in this helicopter, in this Black Hawk? Is there any possibilities of sabotage? Once again, I don't think that's the case at all, but I would like to know. Was everything working the way it was supposed to be working? Did someone sabotage this helicopter in anticipation that maybe important world leaders and prominent figures would be on there? These are questions we got to ask, because this was not any normal helicopter and it was not on any normal training mission. When you know what this helicopter is for and the mission or the training that it was doing, it really makes you question. And like I said, how routine is this training? Are we doing this training because now, we got a new president that just came in. He's only been president for a week. We got to redo these trainings, just in case something happens. I don't know. I would like to know, do they have any information that led them to have this training right now? Is there something on the horizon where you feel like you're going to need one of these Black Hawk helicopters to swoop into Washington, D.C. in the middle of hella air traffic to evacuate or rescue the president or someone like that? So those are questions that we got to keep asking. Unfortunately, though, I know how these things work. I've covered enough news stories to know now that if you don't get answers within the first few days, you're not going to get answers at all. We got to get whatever information we can out of this plane crash now while we still can, because they'll do an investigation. They'll do an investigation, and a year or 2 years, 3, 4 years from now, they'll come out with answers, and no one, and I mean no one, will give a damn at all. I watch it play out with every single story. Either you get the answers now or you'll never get them. It doesn't even matter if they come out and tell you the whole truth in 3 or 4 years. No one will be there to read it or care. I can assure you that. So let's try to get what answers we can now, and let's move forward, because I can assure you we'll have another crazy world-shattering event in a few days, the way things have been playing out so far in 2025. But for now, let me know your thoughts down below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.